everybody, welcome. This is episode 31 now of my podcast, and today I am very pleased to welcome two gents. One, Russell Whitby from HLM Architects, he's in their London studio. And secondly, Sebastian Ourselin, who is a professor and director of the London Institute for Healthcare Engineering. Both of you, welcome. You're working in collaboration, I understand, at the moment on a particular project with HLM. And if I don't know who wants to start. Russell, do you want to start on behalf of HLM and explain your background and who you are? You've been with HLM for 7 or so years, is that right?
I am, yeah. I started way back, I think I've been there around 2018, 2019, and I'm a technical director for HLM. Some roles sort of grown over the years, now doing more split between the education and helping HLM achieve more compliance sort of post-Grenfell in the new PD, Building Safety Act world, so helping that way. One of the first projects I did was Lihe with Seb, and we've sort of been progressing around the whole thing. We're in the defects end, so the building's been open about a year now. So we're doing all those things that we should be doing, checking the defects and doing the POE type of post-occupancy evaluation and going through the last sorts of elements of that. So there's a whole bit of work that's going to come out of that on how successful the building is and all those technical detail things like, is it using the right carbon, etc. So we're looking forward to that as well, the next sort of life of the project after it's been finished. So yeah, that's a brief introduction to myself.
And Seb, obviously you're working for the business, for the building, as we discussed earlier. So explain who you are there and your background.
Yeah, sure. So thanks very much. So I'm an academic by background. I'm as well an entrepreneur. I set up I co-founded a few companies over the last 20 years. PhD in medical devices, and since then I stay in medical devices. So anything from a software as a medical device to a very complex piece of robotic for surgery. So very strong focus on healthcare. I joined King's in 2018. I had this vision of building this dedicated infrastructure for hosting entrepreneurs or innovators and our strategics well before I started, in fact, at King's. And what drove me to actually move to King's was really the development of this ecosystem that we named the MedTech Hub, which is this alliance between the university sector with the NHS and the private sector. And one of the biggest driver really has always been about making those devices. And if you really want to make those devices, you need to actually go through very stringent regulatory process. You need to get your labels, which will be named UK CE mark in the UK, which will name CE mark in the EU, or named FDA approved, FDA certified in the US. If you want to do that, you need to run under a quality management system. You need to run this as a product. And so saying that you're going to change the world, which is what I want to do with my technology, without creating product, I think it's a bit of a dream pipe. And if you really want to do it for real, then you have two choices. Either you develop your technology and you convince strategics of the lack of Siemens, Healthineers, GE, Stryker, Medtronic, and Johnson & Johnson to actually license your technology. Or quite often, because you're very early in the process and you are quite innovative, and therefore it might be a radical idea, it might be a pioneer idea, which means disrupting the market, and as well the market of the strategic, you might end up having to spin out a company. Okay. And so the whole concept really, where the project started, has been really about how do you support your entrepreneurs to be well equipped to develop those technology and to reach a point they can spin out and really support the UK PLC in medical devices by providing this ecosystem when they can safely test their device, have their first in-trial solutions into the clinic, and eventually be supported for their go-to-market strategy and creating their company. So that was really the starting point of Lihe.
Okay. We're talking now back when did these thoughts come to fruition? This is 2018, is that right? Something like that.
So I did the first version of Lahi in a different university, and it was a hub and spoke model, and it was virtual.
Yeah.
And what I realized very quickly is there is no way of creating those devices at pace without being co-located into the environment when those devices are going to be used, and very importantly, having the patient voice and having the entirety of the patient pathway understanding. Talking to the clinicians is important, but talking to the nurse is even more important.
Yeah.
Talking to the radiographer is even more important. But as well, talking to the companies who have done it is even more important.
Of course.
You learn by osmosis. You learn by working with people who've been in the same business that you are.
Yeah.
And so creating a place when you've got peers is really, really key. And that's why academic environment has department. You go to a companies have department as well. So people doing the same type of function will tend to work together. But what you do is all of those functions are co-located usually, so they can talk to each other.
Yes.
If now you talk about entrepreneurship, there is no such thing. I couldn't find a place where you can go and say, oh, okay, I want to understand the market. I want to understand the go-to-market strategy. I want to understand the healthcare economic assessment. I want to understand the regulation. I want to understand how I'm going to do a first inpatient to de-risk my technology. I want to understand how to raise money. And I want to talk to people who've done it. And I want to talk to large strategic who might acquire it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't exist. So that was really the starting point.
Okay. So how did the whole meeting collaboration begin with Russell then? Did you know each other originally, or had you worked previously with HLM, or how did that
No, so the whole storyline was really through a procurement process, to be honest with you. We applied, or I applied for a specific funding from the government called UK RPIF, which is specifically about infrastructure fund, which is specifically about university sector being able to get access to government support to develop new infrastructure, which will have a substantial impact into the research, but more importantly as well into the economy and into the community.
Okay.
So this opportunity arose in 2017. My job at King started in April 2018. The outline for this call was during Christmas time. So I had to write this as my Christmas present to be able to submit this phase one. But more importantly, to be able to submit this, it was based on a double matching exercise. So if you want to get £1 from the government, you need to show you have £2 of support from industry.
Okay.
So I had to basically create a coalition of industry partners who actually can demonstrate to the government that there is an appeal, there is a need here. So I've been working for quite a long time in the field. I know a few people, so I spent a fair amount of time to network and to lobby some colleagues, and ended up having some of our preferred partners, which were part of the bid from the beginning, including Siemens Healthineers, including NVIDIA, including Medtronic, including IBM, and many more SMEs in the UK that we are working with. We managed to create a consortium which pledged for £32 million of investment, mostly investments through equipment provision, but as well through services provision and in-kind contribution, including the commitment of having dedicated research staff from the company being physically on site. We put the proposal forward to the government with a very strong backup from the university, and the order at the time of another 16 million to be able to compete for this bid. We got selected, shortlisted for the full bid, which happened just after I just joined the university, and then managed to be successful of getting the fund by the end of 2018. And so by then we had to go through as any public institution, had to go through a process of procurement.
Yes.
I had written already the full vision of the building, which I can go into detail in a second. And then HLN applied as one of the many other architects and won the competition because clearly they understood the brief. I mean, we didn't come with just saying, I want a box to put people in. We already had a vision. And what was for us, or to me, very appealing as a senior lead for the organization on this project was they were not only, of course, answering the exam question, but they were as well offering opportunities to further improve what the building will look like.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's how the starting of the journey happened.
One thing you said, sorry to intervene, you said the first funding round was hopefully for 60 million, was that right? But you ended up with 32, is that what you said? So pretty much.
No, so you had to raise 32 million pounds of private investment.
Yeah.
So non-government funding to be able to claim
I see.
16 million.
Right.
So the 30 million were not for the building. The 32 million from industry were a demonstration of the importance and the added value that the building will have created. This helped us to actually raise 16 million pounds of government funding.
Yeah.
And the university matched it by another 16 million, which was the starting point of the building. I mean, of course, you usually have already a sense about the market, so we had of course to ping the market about what should be the estate cost of such building.
Yeah.
But of course, things never go as planned in estate environment, especially when you plan it pre-COVID you plan it pre-Ukraine war. So we had a few interesting challenge along the way.
And I think that was sort of key for the sort of competition process is coming along, understanding that it was to support with the bid process because there was still a stage to get through. The money wasn't guaranteed, so it was coming with, we need to put the best sort of bid for UKR PIF together, and then the project becomes alive since then. And I think one of the other it was a good sort of thing, is the UKR PIF had a time limit, so once you got it, you had to spend it. So it really helped the project get pushed forward because you would lose money if you didn't push forward with it, and what you could spend was quite unique on that sort of breakdown of their money. So that sort of helps push the program, push it through.
So the brief I had, which I had to write and explain in more detail, was to create an environment which I name going from bench to bedside to boardroom.
Okay.
Creating a building where, given the limited footprint of the space we had, every single floor will feel like a continuum of the next floor.
Okay.
That you will not feel coming to the building that you were isolated by the staircase. You were isolated by the floor in which you were.
Yeah.
So having a sense of openness, having a sense of innovation as well, having a sense that when you go to the building, you want to be there and you want to interact. So it was not a building where you will have labs. Okay. It was a building where you will interact with people. And this whole concept of bench to bedside to boardroom was really as well, in reality, characterized by the function of the different floor. So when you're in the ground floor of the building, it's all about support and education. So you are next to the hospital, and that's really important. We are 30 seconds away from the south wing door of St. Thomas Hospital. So you are in this amazing spot next to one of the world-leading hospital within our country. And you can have access to this hospital. So you're next to the bench. You're next to the bedside. Why are you next to the bench? Because we build 6,500 square meters of dedicated laboratory in the hospital for our researchers to do their research in the hospital. Yeah. And what we did is we say, okay, if we've got this building and we got innovators on board, we're going to give them access to those facilities. They don't have to build it again for their own company. So it was really being close to the bench. But then being close to the bedside as well, because you have the patient ward next to it. It's one of the most acute trusts in the country, very large patient population coming in, very general. So you could actually do pretty much any disciplines within this hospital. And very importantly as well, we are part of what we call King's as partners. So we've got 3 associated hospitals with us. Guy's and St. Thomas. So St. Thomas Hospital is the site we are, but we've got Guy's as well next to London Bridge. We've got King's College Hospital in Denmark Hill, and we've got the Moseley, the largest and I think the most reputed mental health hospital in the country. So you have access to this network as well. So on this ground floor, what I was really keen on is we have a space when we can lecture, we can teach. We have developed a dedicated master program in MedTech entrepreneurship and innovation to be able to create a new way of teaching, which will be very much close to creating a company. So your master program, your master thesis is not just an exam question. It's not an academic question. It's actually working with innovators and trying to support them in one part of their business journey. Or it could be about yourself creating your company and eventually spinning out, which happened, right? So lecture theater to do that, flat lecture theater, so you can do other things like workshops. You can organize Dragon's Den event. You can organize a VC pitch event. And something we didn't even appreciate it when we started is the place is so amazingly well located and quite iconic. With $1 million view, if not $10 million view, it became very attractive to organize event. Which I will come back to later on. And that's something we didn't really expect it when we started. That was not something in my brief that we're going to organize a lot of events, but it just happens that we did. And then at the back of this building, we had a space that we call the core. And the core is when we've got the core facility of staff, which really can help you to go from bench to bedside to boardroom, which can help you to start with your strategic business plan, up to all of your business, getting a business acumen, but as well getting the design of your device, supporting you with your IP filing and so on. Do the whole pipeline with a concept as well that this place is open and it's not about King's College London. It's about the UK. It's about the UK PLC. It's about the support and the creation of an environment where innovation is part of the DNA and it's open to everyone and we can give access to this infrastructure to everyone. And then on this first floor, the ground floor, in fact, we had as well other office space at the main entrance, which we had to reconsider. And that was an important part of the conversation with HLM, was what do we do post-pandemic? How do we even further modify the building to make it even more attractive? Because of course, everyone in the university was asking me, why on earth we're spending multiple tens of millions of pounds in a building when everyone is working from home? Do you believe that people will come back? And I had to really argue the case strongly. And I think we demonstrated that you cannot really innovate in a vacuum. You cannot innovate from home if you are developing a medical device. You have to be on site. And I think the amount of people coming to the building has been shown really that was true. Then on the first floor, this is where we host our entrepreneurs. So if you are from King's College London and you're creating companies in the field of medical devices, then you've got space as part of your deal of creating a company for King's. So you're on site next to your peers. But then as well, we have a space that we wanted to be flexible when we can organize small workshops to do some training. So because we organize what we call Venture Builder. So we build the first Venture Builder program in the UK when we select companies and we support them to go from one to another inflection point. And then in the same floor, we wanted a space when someone could come from Leeds, from Sheffield, from Edinburgh, had to spend a day in London to talk to an investor, being a medtech company. Where do they go? Do they go to WeWork? Do they go to a local cafe? Or do they come to Lahi? And for a very small fee, spend a day with like-minded people. Perhaps even starts a collaboration with a clinician or talk to an entrepreneur. Know exactly within the building, so build a community. So we wanted to build an app where you will know at any point within the building. You come and for a few pounds, a few tens of pounds, we have some numbers. I'm not going to make some marketing today. Then you can actually rent a desk for a day. And because you had to rent a desk, we needed to have space when you can actually leave your stuff securely. Yeah. So we need to have some lockers that you can use and get access for one day. So that was the first floor. Then the second floor, That's where we wanted to have our strategics. So what is a strategic? It's a large medtech company who is one of the majority, stakeholder or shareholder in a specific sector. So if you look at diagnostic imaging, we're talking about the like of Siemens, Philips, or GE, for instance. If you look at medical device, you will talk of the like of Medtronic or Stryker or J&J. If you talk about compute and AI, you will talk about the like of course, NVIDIA. But how do you bring strategic in an open space when they might have their competitor next door? And how do you know that those people will stay long enough that you're going to create fixed offices that they will use that capacity all the time? That's where we had to have into the concept of the building flexible space. And in my mind, very perhaps simple architecture man, I'm not an architect. I was thinking about, okay, you have some glass doors or some plain door and plain wall, and you come and you do your IKEA style. You just fix them around and you create your own office. You've got a card access on this office. You can do it in a matter of a day. And you can prepare this space for your new strategic who might stay for 6 months and might want to leave because they might want only to come for a specific project in the university or a specific project with an academic or with another company in the building. And then on the third floor, that was about all social space and boardroom. So again, bench to bedside to boardroom. So you go up to the building, you're attracted by the top floor when you have a nice space, and at the time we were not meant to have a terrace. The terrace was an artifact of the Archbishop of Lambeth, which had an agreement with the Mayor of London, perhaps a century ago, that he will have an uninterrupted view of the Parliament, of the House of Lords, and therefore we couldn't build the totality of the top floor.
Of course.
And then at the time, the conversation with the state was, well, we should put the plant in this place. And so we had a lot of back and forth to convince that we should build a terrace on the top floor. But how do you build a terrace on the top floor, which is right in front of the Parliament, on the other side of the town? Well, you need to have very good conversation with the Secret Services and MI5.
Had to do all of those sorts of security analysis, threat analysis of, the massing. Planners were the envelope we pushed as much with the planners would allow us to get these terraces on because they were very, very important to have that outside space and have that view of the Thames because there isn't many. Even the hospital is on the Thames; it hasn't got those key views across it. And that anecdotal thing throughout the whole project we couldn't actually find. So it was Lambeth Palace, which is behind the site, so Lambeth Palace Gardens. There was anecdotally a connection between church and state that one was able to view the other, and the sight line was across our site. But that was anecdotally proven not to be key. It was that sort of thing that we had to deal with. But we pushed the massing as much as we can with the planners, and the planners were happy. So we tried to sort of, in the sort of architectural world, not kill it with a load of plant. The plant is sort of scattered throughout the building and hidden away as much as it could be to create. There's two terraces. One on the first floor, which has a slight setback, because planners wanted to see the corner of the hospital estate, because as you go along the sort of Guy's and St Thomas estate, you've got the historical blocks. We're sort of sandwiched between two historical grade 2 listed blocks, and the corners are very apparent because they're sort of they classify as towers. So pulling facades back was able to create one terrace, which was sort of mainly for those sort of staff on the first floor, and then the third floor sort of massive sort of terrace that is key really for the whole building, because as Seb was saying, going to say is it becomes such a selling point that wasn't there at the beginning and sort of changed the mode of the building halfway through towards that sort of COVID end, on how they could generate more income and grab people into the building by having this view. And I've actually been to a couple of events there anyway that are outside of King's that people use it as an event space. So
we work really hard on the building to make it sustainable. And so on the top floors, and you've got a dedicated kitchen as well, and social spaces for people to interact and mingle across those different floors. And then you've got those two boardrooms at the back that people can use either for the startups for their own board, or the large company. And the whole dynamic of the building was really, and that was the key, was really about flow and communication. And so the spinal cord of the building is this amazing staircase, which is shaped like an helix, like the DNA, where you can actually be face to face to people crossing the building and going up. And we, well, I was quite keen as well that if we have a large staircase, then we have platforms at every single floor, where you could have some informal meeting space, open meeting space, which will not disrupt people in the open plan area. And in the open plan area, another important aspect, which was certainly part of the furniture conversation, was how do you maximize the amount of meeting rooms? And so we have a huge amount of pods within the building. In fact, I always claim that this building, which on paper only had 4 meeting rooms and 2 boardrooms, has more meeting rooms than anywhere else in the university, because we must have something like 20 or 25 pods, all scattered across the building, from a single pod to a space for up to 4 people. And that's really as well changed the dynamic of the building and the innovation.
Are these pods, are these the pod idea, because you mentioned earlier about your idea of the whole IKEA glass sliding doors and all the rest of it? These pods replace that, I presume. Is that right?
No, they do. They're in addition. They're in addition.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right, I see.
Russ, you might want to
pre-COVID, there was no flexible demountable partitions that could grow with you, and you could store it all in your building, and you could create offices when you needed, or if you needed, depending on your workforce. The only one I found was in Ukraine, which was like a pump-up system in a sealed system. But after COVID, there was a lot more that came to market, and we did a lot of work. The second floor is designed to have has bulkheads, all fixed MEP, but within these bulkheads goes these flexible wall system, which enables teams to grow. And what it is partners come in and sort of, when they need to retreat back into a sort of secure office to do, other bits of work, they can do that, but then they share the space with everyone else. And then once they're down, you could increase. So the whole floor plate can be carved up to an 8-person office, or it can be sort of segregated out, and everything's sort of stored in the sort of cores and then wheeled out over the weekend, so it can be changed really, really quickly. Okay. And it's glass and quite secure and quite acoustically driven. So we've sort of done all of that. And in addition, they have those sort of meeting pods, which people can go and do calls like this quickly throughout the day without needing large meeting room bookings and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating. I wanted to pick up again, just going back slightly, if we may, with planning, and you mentioned about security clearance, obviously MI5 and all the rest of it. That must have been one of the biggest challenges, I would imagine, for the open space.
You thought it would, but you once you have those conversations, you start them, it's all fine. We had Cundall's do the threat analysis, London-based, so that went through the whole hospital estate. Houses of Parliament have some cameras on the hospital side, so on this side, so as long as we weren't instructing those. The only change they wanted was around the terraces to make them fully glass, so they could see anything happening. And no parties after 8, I think, was the sort of a thing as well. We did threat analysis from the other side. They were more worried about the threat analysis is more from Lambeth Palace and cars driving in. You sort of learn a lot about how terrorist threats work across London when you do one of these projects, because they're sort of talking about it being the hospital being a target as well. So how you would deal with that and things like that. So we have sort of impacted facades and integrated hidden stuff in the landscape to sort of help with all of that sort of elements and creating pocket locks of people and cars so that people don't move freely. And I think the other thing the hospital have, which is not security, is security, but more on the sort of funnier anecdotal side, is New Year's Eve they get flooded with people trying to stand along in the hospital estate watching the fireworks go off. So how do they lock down over a couple of days through that? So we did all of that, and that took a long time to unpick all of that analysis and how to not affect the building and its day-to-day running, because you're not creating a concrete bunker at the end of the day, but
I will say on my experience of being on the project management side of the university was really the complexity of the site, restricted access, having to modify as well one of the fire exit and safety route for as a fire brigade, having to ensure that you are following some day without any noise-free days for the hospital. Having to comply with the hospital health and safety while being a King's building on an hospital site right for the Parliament. So it's a complexity of the site, the restricted access of the site, which I think, at least from my experience, was perhaps where most of the conversation ended up being, and most of the potential delay on the project as well ended up being.
So just the site was a lot smaller. There was a live hospital road going through the middle of it with the old building, and we moved the road further away to increase the building footprint. But that road I call it a road, it's the back access to the hospital. So no blue light stuff, but they're for fire, some patient drop off. They shouldn't really be using it, but they use it. So it's their sort of fire route. So had to keep it live. So we moved it to give us a bigger footprint. But we had to keep it live throughout the whole project and how you deal with that, and constant conversations about the hospital's fire strategy, how to help with that, even though we weren't really solving their fire strategy. The way the sort of I don't know if you know the site, Nick, but the hospital sort of finishes and then the rest is King's land, so it's their own land, but it has all these cross covenant discussions going across the whole thing. So we deal with all of that really. Wow. So keeping a live road was one of the complex things, and dealing with bed evacuation. Fire strategies were constantly evolving during this time as well. So everyone was getting a bit worried. So a lot of my time was debating different fire tactics that were going on, and how to overcome certain elements, because it wasn't, it's an open building with sprinklers, so it's not a building that we don't, roll out across this country all the time. But people, the way the regulations were changing, people just getting a hold of them. So we had to spend a lot of time talking people down and analysing everything else. So the fire strategy was looked at more than anything else. And then across the estate, the fire strategy, and then that security analysis we were talking about ended up being for the whole hospital estate, because it's how everything connects in. So those things delayed a lot of the things and sort of added to the cost of our building, but there were things outside of our control to try and get it, back on track really.
I mean, for you as an architect as well, just listening to the passion that you have, but also the hurdles you came up against are unprecedented. I imagine quite new challenges for you, and that makes the whole thing very interesting in itself as a project in its entirety, doesn't it? You're coming across things that you didn't know you would have to be presented with.
Yeah, we always try our best in projects this sort of special to try and hedge your bets and be aware of everything, But once things start coming out the ground, that's when people are fully aware, because you can keep asking for stakeholder engagement and am I speaking to the right person, but then until it comes out the ground, that's when you get phone calls and more meetings and coordinating with people you didn't know existed.
And initially, I wanted the building to be connected with the hospital, which was an interesting health and safety challenge. Which sometimes you think it's small thing, but especially when you have no understanding, perhaps, of the constraints that it creates on the system. And we did end up by not having to have the building directly fully connected with the hospital, because otherwise it would have meant that during any type of health and safety intervention, every single patient which will have been located in near the south wing entrance of the hospital will have to evacuate through our building, and therefore we had to make our building independent. But I mean, one part as well, which I think it's certainly one of the most visible value of the building is the external facade, and might be helpful, Russell, if you wanted to discuss as well of the aspect of the hospital that we have next to it and the old medical school next door, and how you guys try to make sure that the building, while being extremely modern, really look like a grade 2 listed building.
Yeah. Thanks, Seb. Yeah, the facade was always interesting because initial discussions with the planners were like, yeah, you can have a building, but as long as it's not distracting from the historical sort of sandwich that we are between, which was sort of Portland stone, large terracotta bricks. So we spent a lot of the time getting quite into it, really, measuring facade indents, fenestration width, so to come up with a language that we could replicate. So we came up with these 4 numbers of bays that were replicated on the sort of existing hospital site, and then we pulled that across, and then we did a sort of color typography across the site. So what's the main colors, and then we ended up with a stick system which had GFRC and terracotta baguettes, which sort of mirrored the sort of language that was around, but sort of creating something really, really modern. And it's super insulated, sort of glass system, high U values, so they hit that sustainability measure. So the facade sort of mirrors its sort of area that it's within, and the planners were really happy with it. They had no comments. They came down and helped us pick some terracotta. That's how sort of happy they were that that something was happening on the site opposite the Thames. So they were very much hands-on throughout the design period. So we had a lot of discussions with them, and really, really happy. So you would thought there would be always a bit scared of planners, but here they were really, really nice. This was just during COVID, so everyone came down fully masked up. So we did a lot of tours with them, and it went through without any objections. So we couldn't be happier with the sort of facade and the building it is. So it has a lot of components to it. You're trying to keep it quite simple, but the one facing the sort of the Thames has a sort of promenade sort of feel to it, which mirrors a sort of hospital promenade. And then when you look at the whole hospital estate, it has these reliefs which is pulled through to the stair Seb was talking about. So we have a south-facing double helix stair which connects the whole floors, which we wanted to be the main connection point between all floors. It's very important because this is pre-COVID, but even now, when we're at work, we sort of tend to stay in our own bubbles, and especially some of the engineers in the medical world. So it's forcing that interaction and conversations at points, and then feeling as if you can just break out into little bubbles and have these discussions, especially with the fantastic people, the MedTech professionals they have there on site, in the social space or just going between floors. So it was increasing those chance connections and sort of feeding everything from that. That was the main driver architecturally for the stair, to connect to each of those floors. So the whole thing is then sort of from that stair, you'll see it just hugs around, and it just creating those views across the whole thing. So it's all feels really, really open for such a small site. So facade and stair are the main sort of drivers to keep in the cost plan and keep those sort of main concepts of Seb's alive throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. It's the whole planning thing that you said went so very, very well is good to, I mean, I'm talking to directors that are having planning issues when they're trying to extend a 3-bed semi in the countryside. So it's it's nice to hear how on board they were, especially through the times of COVID as well, when it was so very difficult. So it's testament to the work that you've done in order to get it to that stage, first of all, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Collectively. So the whole HLM team, how many of you were involved then, number-wise, from HLM? Architects involved in the project?
We had a team of 4 architects, but the whole team was appointed by HLM. So that was one of the sort of one-stop shop solutions that we offered. So we had obviously interiors, landscape, and then MEP and Cundles, and then fire in OFR. So it was quite a big team. I think the biggest it ever got was 30 of us. Going through all the sort of CDM, BRIAM, trying to bring together a large team like that, which is fantastic. There was no sort of everyone was aware of the location of the project, because we're very keen to say that, you don't build many things on the Thames. You don't build many things opposite the Houses of Parliament. So this is very special.
Yeah.
And we could get a chance to play a part of something which is going to be around for 100 years plus. So
Yeah, I must say it's a strange feeling as an academic, not an architect, to go out of Westminster tube station, cross Westminster Bridge, and being able to see your building on the other side of the town, right in front of the Parliament. So, and you know that it will be there well after our time on this planet.
It was photographed a lot because the COVID wall, the poppy wall, is in front of it on the lower embankment side. So it's photographed a lot, and a lot of people walking past it, seeing it go up. So it's quite nice to see. So yeah, the whole design team is just getting them to buy into something special, and let's try and put our best foot forward and sort of coordinate as best as we can. So everyone was fully aware of it. But yeah, it's just an exciting project and loads of people, and that just becomes your main job at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you do appreciate, after you build something like this, the value of a building. People change their perceptions of your own quality of research based just on the place you are part of. And so I think what is meant to be a place of meeting become a place of marketing and branding and reputation as well. And I think if the building would not have looked like how it looks like today, if it had just been a big box, I don't think it would have had the same side effect and collateral positive outcomes that we've seen. I mean, if you think a building starting from zero to host over 400 events, 8,000 people coming to the building in less than a year. I mean, I think that's pretty remarkable for a building which actually not very large. So it became quite quickly a central point, and I stopped counting how many pictures on LinkedIn and Instagram and social media there is of people on the terrace taking pictures. So
I mean, the building has its own LinkedIn channel, and then other people have. And it's interesting to see the photos come up, because you sort of zoom in to go, where are they in the building, and you have this personal connection. Everyone's on the terrace, but there's so many events that you're just like, wow, it's been photographed a lot, and people seem really happy to be in it. So it has all these different modes and functions throughout the whole thing, and the spaces try and reflect what's going on in those spaces. So it's check out it's got a very social media presence, which is quite good because of the events that happen within it. It's
I think the dynamic with the local estate team as well has been very productive to end up with some small details which end up being part of the final project, like the street number of the building, which was a special request to our local council. To not have just the next number, but having an available number which was not meant to be. And so we ended up with number 100 at Lambeth Palace Road, which I think for a building who wants to really make a difference and develop technology, is a good number to have.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, where do you... This is likely, Russell, for you, your standout project in your career, your highlight project in your career, I should imagine. I mean, where do you go from here? Where are the next project now? It's
next building next door. We have
there's a continuation of that sort of ethos into the sort of there's I think it's grade 2 listed. So the end of the hospital site, it was always an education sort of quarter, and there's a body tunnel that links the hospital to the next block underneath Leahy. So there's a listed body tunnel, which is one of the other aspects we had to keep live. So the building cantilevers over a body tunnel. And then in that building is all the historic, that's where the old theatre was. That's where they brought the cadavers in. So that itself has sort of been left vacant since about the 80s. So it all needs to be brought up into a new sort of... It's difficult on the retrofit sort of element to bring it up to space, because it is all... sorry to use the word, but higgledy-piggledy, little bits built over the years. So that's the next project. I think the projects that I'm doing now within HLM, you go from SEBS 1, and then I'm helping a college over in Tottenham. So it'll, I'm an
Yeah.
education architect, so I help out everything that I can from schools to colleges. So I sort of do all of those. But yeah, it is career defining, and we've won quite a lot of awards with it, and it's still in the award season, so we're still counting. So the next door projects, and then sort of keeping fingers crossed that it does sort of happen, that one next door, so you can create a whole sort of estate down that end of the site, really.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed it does. And you've set a precedence now. You've got the template of work that you can do. So you've kind of proven yourself, haven't you? So hopefully it will continue.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, look, all credit. I mean, we could talk all day, but I'm conscious of your time as well. We've spoken for 50 minutes, and I've been fascinated by everything you've had to say, by learning about the building and the way it's come from when you started to where it is today. Is just all credit to the both of you and the work that you do and your wider teams, obviously. And thank you for sharing everything that you've done with our audience, which I'll look forward to sharing in the next week or so. You both deserve a holiday, I would say. Now, are you having?
Now I need to raise the money for the next building. So
Yes.
next door.
Another holiday. Yeah.
Yes. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on to my
Thanks,
podcast
Nick.
and talking with me today, and it's been a pleasure to meet you both, and thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you. Thanks, Russell.
All the very best. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.